Welcome to Blue Sky. My name is Richard Tannery, and I started this program to celebrate innovators, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. Yeah, I'm looking at Alpha Coffee here out of, where are they? Cottonwood Heights, Utah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's him.
that looks good. Yeah, I had a broker contact me the other day. There's this coffee roaster up in one of the mountain states that's for sale, and I thought it was neat. I mean, I love coffee, but I wouldn't know the first fucking thing to do with owning my own coffee roaster, like mass distribution and roasting the stuff. And kudos to whoever can get that off the ground.
Yeah, my uncle tried it back when I was younger in Ventura, California, and when he first opened up, he did great. He imported all of his coffee and everything from South America, and it was booming. He was doing good, but he wanted to open up another shop, and ended up taking a loan from somebody he shouldn't have, and it was a biker gang that's well known in that area. And once he opened up that second shop, he got muscled and basically went out of business and moved out. But yeah, so just be careful who you decide to borrow money from. That's for sure. But it can be lucrative. A lot of people are looking into more of like the small shop coffee shops instead of these big chains. So.
Yeah. Holy shit. Justin Nerdrum, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going well. Just another beautiful week. Sun's finally out, getting rid of these clouds. How about you?
Yeah, it's been a little warmer here in the Austin, Texas area, but it's kind of overcast the past couple of days. We welcome the rain. We haven't had a wet spring in a couple of years, so it's pretty refreshing. Where are you geographically?
Yeah, currently I'm up in the mountains of Utah. So
Oh, nice.
so we get way too much rain, we get way too much snow. But I feel your pain out there in Texas. I visit quite often in what they call hill country, I guess, out there.
Yep.
And that's one thing they always tell us when we get out there is pray for ranks. You guys never get it. So
Yeah. It's hit or miss, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Last year,
Oh yeah.
in this area in the hill country, last year we had over 90 days in a row of 100 plus degrees every day, and
Wow.
no rain. It was a nightmare.
Oh man, that would be.
Yeah. But I love your part of the country. My wife and we did a mountain states tour last year, got a travel trailer, got the kids in it,
Mhm.
and went up through Grand Canyon area, which is gorgeous. We've never seen it in person. Then went around that and headed up through southern Utah back over to Colorado.
Oh, nice.
So we did that highway that's on the south part of the state.
Mhm.
I've never seen anything more beautiful. It's just breathtaking. So I envy you and your geographical location. We'd love to get up there sometime.
Oh, very nice. Well, come visit.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, let's start with some icebreakers.
All right.
Yeah. So wife and kids?
Yes, sir. So been married for the last 15 years, got 3 kids, 2 teenage boys and 1 toddler girl. So there's a 10-year buffer in between my last son and the baby girl that came along.
God bless you. Yeah.
It's been fun. Mm-hmm.
iPhone or Android?
I use iPhone. I wouldn't say I necessarily have a preference. I guess it's one of those things just so I could play silly little games. I ended up getting an iPhone. But I hear Androids are coming back around. So I don't know. Maybe when I upgrade, I'll switch over just so I could kind of see which one would work out better for me.
Favorite ice cream?
Oh, I've been a fan of cookies and cream for a long time, but my son is getting me into more like the peanut butter chocolatey kind of ice cream, and that one's pretty good as well. So I would say my favorite is cookies and cream, but that one's a second up on it.
Yeah, I love the peanut butter ad. What was your first car?
My first car was actually a 65 Mustang. The folks and I, well, my dad and I ended up picking that up when I was about 14 years old. It was an old 65 with the engine completely dismantled and thrown in the trunk of the car. And it was a straight 6. Yeah, straight six, right? Yeah, straight six. That was in there, and we decided just to throw that out, and we went and junkyard a V8 and kind of rebuilt it. So it didn't actually get running until I was 16, which worked out because that's when I was able to drive. But it was a fun little project I did with my pops.
What color was it?
It was like poop brown when we got it. It was like that all gold brown, but now it's painted all kind of like a midnight blue. It's with black interior. Before it was like poop brown with even browner interior.
What was your first concert?
My first concert, even though I don't listen to these guys, my cousin took me to them, but it was a Blink 182 and Madness. They opened up in California at the Santa Barbara Bowl. And so that was my first one that I went to. I wouldn't say I was into that genre of music, but it was enjoyable.
Coffee, tea, or something else in the morning?
Oh, yeah, definitely coffee.
What brand? Do you do specialty, or are you Folgers Maxwell House dude?
Oh no, we have a so I've been getting Black Rifle for a little while, but we switched over. Locally, we have this company called Alpha Coffee, and it's another veteran-owned coffee company. So I go with them because their stuff is nice and stout. I feel like I don't do Starbucks often unless I have to, just because it's right around the corner. But I don't do any fancy drinks. It's just black coffee, just straight plain. But I feel like Starbucks puts a little extra stuff in their in their coffee, so I like to try to keep it as normal as possible. But, I go with Alpha or Black Rifle.
When did you go to straight black coffee? Because I know exactly the moment I went to straight black.
That's a good question. Ever since I was a youngin'. So whenever I go to my grandparents' house, probably at 14, 15 years old, my grandpa would have that instant coffee, the instant Folgers, and we would just douse it in there and go with that. And ever since then, I just drank black coffee. So about 14, 15 years old. And I have a weird taste. And so I used to drink just straight whiskey, Copenhagen, long cut, and then black coffee. And so my wife would just be like, that's disgusting. But hey, it worked for me.
Hey, man, that's like the holy trinity.
Oh, for sure.
What is your spirit animal?
Oh, man. I would probably have to say growing up, I always loved wolves. And so probably more of the wolf. They're kind of majestic looking, but they pack a bite. So.
I'm curious, do you have wolves up in Utah? Because from what I understand, I know that Colorado just reintroduced them to the wilderness. So is there a wolf presence in Utah?
I don't think so. No, I think the closest that we have would be more of the Yellowstone area, or Wyoming anyways.
Okay.
Is where we got the wolf packs. They could be migrating here to Utah, but no, we don't typically have wolves or bears. We have like little black bears, and I haven't heard of any wolves, but yeah.
Road trip, music, podcasts, anything else?
Yeah, when it comes to road trip, depends on who the company is. And so if it's my family, of course, we're going to listen to music. This is kind of funny. This is before everything went popular and really interesting. But when my first son was, he was only probably like 1.5, 2 years old. And my wife was pregnant at the time, and I got a new duty station. So I had to drive from North Carolina across the country to recruit out of Utah. And that's kind of what brought us here. But during that drive, my like little 1-year-old, 2-year-old son at the time was just throwing fits no matter what kind of music we put on. And so we'd put on Taylor Swift, don't judge, but Taylor Swift during that time, and he would actually be quiet and start singing and all kinds of stuff. So that helped us get through like a 4-day journey across the country. Now he hates Taylor Swift like the majority of some people. But
hey, I'm a daughter dad. I've got 2 daughters, and Taylor Swift is definitely a household name around here.
Yeah. She exploded over the last couple of years, that's for sure.
Yeah. Favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation, it'd be a toss-up between 2. So one of them would be West Yellowstone, and I love that area because it's not overly crowded with all the tourists, but there's great camping, great hiking. You can do some good hunting up there by Blue Sky. And then what's it called? And then down in Zion, just here in Utah. And going down there, it's just it's amazing seeing all the rock formations, the cliffs, and the wildlife that just runs around in the desert. It's really cool.
Yeah, that goes back to our road trip in South Utah. And I don't remember specifically where exactly this was, but it was this
Mm.
obvious transition from the mountains to like this high plateau or something like that. And
Yeah.
you probably know where I'm talking about, but the highway takes you down almost into, you're like going down the mountain pass into the belly of these overhanging cliffs that kind of stretch
Mm.
over the highway. And the way the rocks had just been shifted and upheaved and turned and twisted, and the road was coming down at this angle, you got
Hmm.
this sense that you couldn't tell if you were going up or down. But the way I described the scenery was like you have descended into the gears of the earth, because you can just kind of see it, just how it's turning and grinding. It was the most beautiful, awe-inspiring thing I've ever seen.
Oh, that's awesome. That could be Moab area maybe,
Yeah,
but yeah, because you got the rock arches and everything out there. But
yeah, we did go through there. So
oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah, it's awesome stuff.
Well, let's talk about your background. Where were you born and raised, and
Yeah.
ultimately what led you from childhood into the Marine Corps?
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's a good question as well. So I was actually born and raised in southernish California. So I say southernish because I was north of Los Angeles, but still south of Santa Barbara. So kind of stuck right there in the middle of a little place called Ventura. And and I grew up there until I was about 19 or 20, and then I moved to Utah and joined the military out of here. But during that time, I was going to high school. Actually, I just graduated when 2011 happened. So it was like shortly after my graduation, I'm sitting there watching the whole thing play out right on the TV screen.
Oh,
But
2001.
of course, oh yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
9/11. Yeah, sorry.
I get those mixed up. I'm good with numbers, but I'm bad with numbers at the same time. But watching that happen, I had a couple buddies join in 2000, and so they got sucked into it pretty quickly. And then when that happened, I was prepping to join, but of course, growing up, I was a bit of a knucklehead. I was on the wrong side of the law side, so I was stuck on a probation period, and I had to wait for that to kind of come off of my probation period. So it wasn't until 2004 that I was actually able to join, and I ended up moving to Utah at the time as well, and then joined the Marine Corps in 2004 once my probation was up. But joys of being a knucklehead. Otherwise, I would have joined in 2001, but they wouldn't take me at the
What
time.
was the motivation?
The motivation was to get in the fight. So a lot of my friends ended up joining, and unfortunately, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of help out with a few foundations that I do now. But they joined the Marines in 2000 because a lot of them graduated in 2000, and myself was 2001 when I graduated. And two of my friends, when they came home, I had what's it called? One of them ended up killing himself in front of his brother, and then his brother ended up overdosing about a month later, which left their father childless, and he didn't have a wife either because she passed away from cancer not too long ago, or shortly before all that happened. And so it was just like a bam, 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 bam for him.
Hmm.
And then I had another one who ended up going AWOL. He came back after deployment. This was like around 2002 ish. And so they were some of the first ones in Afghanistan. And he came back from deployment when AWOL. They had never heard from him again. And so kind of seeing that transition. I wanted to get in the fight, and so that way I could help and kind of be a motivator patriot, so to speak, to kind of help our country and during this time of need. And then two, just seeing the destruction that was happening to my friends and everything, it was just like, well, I got to get out there and kind of help out for the ones that are still in. And it was more of that servant type of aspect that I wanted to join. But that actually led me to kind of what I do now on the side is just help out foundations with individuals that have PTSD that are struggling from it and get them back in the streets and hopefully find that healing and recovery they need.
What are these foundations?
Yeah, the foundation that I work with is called Mighty Oaks. It's started by an individual called Chad Robichaud, and he was part of the JSOC command for the Marines, and so he was like the first MARSOC, so to speak. He's Force Recon, but he ended up struggling with PTSD really really bad when he towards the end of his career, and he kind of got forced out. And because of that, he ended up starting this foundation, and a lot of us end up going through it to help ourselves out, and then become leaders with that foundation, so volunteers to help other individuals too. And really what it does is it gets a group of individuals together, and it helps kind of guide and grow them in what it is to be a man, what PTSD really is, how it's actually a normal response to an abnormal situation. It's not really a disorder or anything, because a disorder would be just an abnormal response, right? And just kind of help educate in the process, give them, allow them to relax, so allow them to, enjoy the camaraderie of other individuals, because a lot of times once you get out, you're alone, and that happened to me when I first got out. And so it just really helps them build that camaraderie, build that friendship, build their what we call cornermen, and that's somebody that you could talk to if you're struggling, and just help them get back on the streets.
When you were contemplating your exit to the Marines, did you have an idea that you would pursue the entrepreneurial path, or did you imagine the corporate world? What did that thought process look like?
Yeah, I would say it kind of forced its way into more the entrepreneurial path. So it was a mixture of corporate as well as entrepreneurial at first. When I got out in 2013, into 2013, so almost 2014. It was a struggle, because I was like applying to hundreds of jobs, and no interviews, no one would take me. And to where finally I ended up getting an interview for a role back in California. I was in Utah at the time. It was with just the interview and $600 in my pocket, and took my family back to California for it. Ended up getting that job. That job turned into more of a consultancy, which grew up from there. And I was able to really kind of stretch the consultancy. And when the consultancy would die down, I'd get a full-time role for a while, and that would guide into consultancy and take back off. But yeah, so it's been a kind of a weave like this. So you got your good days and bad days, but I was kind of forced into it because no one would take me at the time here in Utah.
Well, there seems to be such a stereotype of veterans or military trying to transition. Here in the civilian world, there's the stereotype that, oh, it's this guy that's going to come in and just start barking orders. They're going to be a hard ass, and they imagine the full metal jacket drill sergeant. But I found it's almost opposite. Yeah, I mean,
for sure. And I feel like that's some of the fear too with the fellow veterans out there is they feel like because of their training and experience, they're stuck in just particular genres of work they can do, right? And so we see a lot of them who end up going security forces, or they end up going police force, right? Because they have more combat arms experience. And I remember talking to one from, I think it was GI Jobs at the time, when I was helping individuals kind of transition. He was running security duty for some head honchos out in the Bay Area. He was miserable, and he wanted to get into something that can help propel him, A, financially, and then B, be able to kind of help his mind in a different fashion other than continuing down the security path. And so I was able to help that individual, but yeah, they feel stuck. And then like individuals like myself, we get out and even though it's a great job force to go into, because I was aviation side of the house, I was a crew chief, is going more and working for like a Lockheed or Boeing or something like that as either a contracted crew chief for one of the military bases, or a mechanic that would help out in the forces. But it's still kind of bringing in that subset and feeling like you're stuck. That's the issue is being able to help individuals understand that they're not stuck. There's so much more that they can do. It's just really having that spirit, that dedication, and that perseverance that we have from the military. We really have to want it, and we really have to dive into it, right? Otherwise, we just get stuck in those career fields that we're used to. Granted, you have great experience and great education, but a lot of times when we get out, it's because we want to shift.
I want to try something a little different here.
All righty.
In the spirit of the clown world we live in, let's do clown world rapid fire.
Sounds good. Oh, very nice. I love it.
All right. Just a single word or phrase to accompany each of the topics.
All righty.
Wide open borders.
Welcome to America. Oh, that's a good one.
Semi chubs in the girls' locker room.
Yeah, that's what happens when confusion takes over.
Do why did he P Diddy done? What did he do?
I guess Jay-Z is going to let us know here pretty soon.
AI is covertly building Terminator Skynet in the background.
Mm. Oh yeah, oh yeah, and we're feeding the muscle with Chat GPT.
You get student loans. You get student loans. Everybody gets student loan forgiveness.
Oh yeah, rely on the government, and that'll take away motivation for all.
Columbia protests are mostly peaceful.
Ooh, I have a good story about that, but I guess compared to 2020, they are for now.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
That's what they say. They'll never tell us the truth, and it's on top of that, his client list. No one's been arrested either.
AI will self-realize before humans do.
We should ask Facebook about that when they ran a test. They got it to talk to itself. It was a very scary situation. There's a lot of interesting things going on in the world today, and it makes you wonder. But I think that's the good thing, is it helps people think, right? And so, source out the truth yourself. If you're expecting somebody else to give it to you, like a news outlet or something like that, you'll just continue to be confused.
You said you had a story about Colombia.
Oh yeah, so not necessarily Colombia, but the peaceful protests. So in the summer of 22, I actually ended up getting a contract, and I had to move back to California for a short amount of time. And I was living in the back hills of Berkeley, at a little place called Orinda. And so if we go towards the Berkeley area is where you got Oakland and everything as well. And this is during the time they were pulling people out of their cars in the middle of the freeway. They were shooting at federal officers outside of banks and everything. It was a madhouse. It was destruction. And so that was pretty crazy. So that was definitely what they would call a peaceful protest. Colombia, they're just whining because they don't have food and water, but they kind of put themselves in that same situation. They're getting a little violent, but nothing like what we saw in 2020, at least not yet. But summer's almost here, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I love the demand lists that they're giving. They've occupied a
Mm-hmm.
place. By the way, they've set up a border. They have border security there. That's interesting.
Okay.
A little hypocrisy,
Yeah.
right? But they've got a list of demands, and not only are they expecting food and water and all of these other comforts, they're also kind of picky on stuff. Like they want this type of supply, but it needs to have this kind of compliance, and
Mm-hmm.
no sunscreen. They don't want any sunscreen, as if people are going to bring them a truckload of sunscreen. So pretty interesting, the entitlement. And my take on all of this is, I'm all about the First Amendment for sure. I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to consider this to be a very slippery slope in the history of humanity and how we address this expression of free speech. We need to delineate,
Mm-hmm.
is this free speech or is this a fucking riot? And we
Yeah.
need to address it very sensitively so that Mother Government doesn't come in and suddenly make free speech illegal under the context that they're helping, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
No,
precarious.
absolutely. We're losing a lot. We're losing our values as a country. We're losing our values as individuals, and we're basing everything off of our own pleasure. We're standing up for what's going to bring us the most pleasure, regardless if it sits within the law, within values, or anything in that kind of manner. We're seeing it all over the place, and it's sad. Hopefully one day soon we can get back to what we stand for, and we can find those strong values as individuals as well, that will help guide us. But yeah, like you said, it is that separation of free speech or diving into something much more. And we've seen, like, even in I feel like the 60s was when we ended up having the big the the big jump when it came to more of these protests. And while a lot of them are peaceful, we see with like Martin Luther King, for example, right? He tried to promote peaceful protests for equal rights, which was great. Violence occurred from that because it wasn't due to the time, but there was values associated to it, and that I feel like that's kind of the difference too, right? Whereas now, if we really kind of look at what they're standing for, what are the values? And I understand that a lot of it is against the Israel-Palestine kind of war that's going on there, and some of the potential war crimes that are being associated in the news outlets. But without boots on the ground to really understand truly what's happening out there, then what are you truly standing up for, right? Because a lot of it is just going to be what the news delineates to us and tells us.
Well, and it's also been co-opted. Take a page out of the book from COINTELPRO, back when the government implanted agents inside the Black Panther Party and ate the thing from the inside. The same thing's happening here. It's George Soros paid for activists. A lot of these students on these campuses, or protesters on the campuses, they're not even students there. They're imported. They're getting paid. And that's the unspoken truth that's out there. No one wants to talk about that in the mainstream.
No, very true. That's that mystery word, Antifa. Yeah. Who are they? What do they do?
When this is when I start getting shadow banned, or these clips just get removed off YouTube. So you can say whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's not going to pass the censor test.
Well, let's. Oh no, it happens.
Yeah. Well,
but that's what's going to form that parallel economy, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So. All right. We'll sidestep. Let's take a little step back. Sounds good. What are you passionate about? What's your thing?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So right now I'm really, really passionate about, one is really helping our veterans in the communities out there, and really helping our current military get the gear and everything that they need to be more sufficient. So, for example, I don't know if I'm sure you have, and I'm sure a lot of your audience has, but me coming from the Marines, we're usually handed down all the used equipment. We got to make do with what we got, kind of situation, and we do a great job. And whereas like the Air Force and Army and those guys, they get the good stuff because they got the budget for it. But at the same time, the way war is progressing, sometimes we need better gear, and we're seeing a lot of amazing stuff come out these days. Like a lot of these contractors just do a fabulous job, really, really helping out. I wouldn't put Boeing in the mix, but that's a different story. But they're doing a great job. And then kind of like what I mentioned earlier is like veterans, when they get out, they're having a hard time and they're struggling, trying to, not all, of course, but some, trying to get back onto their feet and trying to find a career that's actually going to help facilitate them, bring them peace of heart, knowing that they're doing something good. So I'm really passionate about helping on both sides of nature, and also combining both sides as well, because there are great benefits within the defense contracting industry for these veterans, to where they could do something different than they did, other than security forces, other than things that they already have training on, but be able to cross train into something that might be able to produce better.
And let's talk about your company, Nerdrums.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's gone through some renditions. It used to be more of a consulting firm. Now I'm changing it into more of an educational outlet as well as news. So we're firing up more of like a veteran owned independent media. And so hopefully that'll trickle off the ground here pretty soon as we bring on more veterans that have that experience of being boots on the ground, being able to get the stuff live, being able to have like your combat camera, for example, get accurate pictures instead of a lot of stuff we see in the news, right? And so something that's going to come in an unbiased manner and still be able to deliver the news up front, so we can kind of weed through a lot of this hoopla that's going on. But at the same time, I'm also trying to help a lot of the defense contractors who are working with the DoD and their subsidiaries, as well as veterans trying to transition. So it's going to be more of like a content media style outlet, and to help defense contractors understand the contracting process, understand whether they can go prime, sub, etc. Be able to partner up and kind of build the community around that. But at the same time, also bring in the military and have them understand the benefits that are available for them, how to transition to a different style of career, and then kind of be able to grow from there. So that's right now, I would say the one thing that is more on point from Nerdrums is my newsletter. And so the newsletter, we're already covering all this stuff and really helping these individuals out. And so that's growing really well while I'm redoing the website and getting everything ramped up to bring on more of the media side of the house and bring on more educational long piece content rather than newsletter style content. But the overall plan here is to be able to help both industries, A, individually, and B, be able to combine and help them grow throughout these times so we can deliver the good equipment to our military forces, as well as help our veterans be able to transition and even our current military know what the options are for them once they get out.
So as part of that, enabling transparency into this very complex acquisitions process, you mentioned contracting.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like,
Yep.
is it, if I'm a guy who just started a defense company or caters to the defense industry, you're going to tell me how to go contract with my end users?
Yeah. And so be able to break down basically what your products and services are.
Okay.
And then who, like, let's say we got DOD, you got so many different subsidiaries that fall under that, right? You got the Army, Navy, and so on and so forth. Just a small example. And then which one is your products and services going to fall under? And then under even like the Navy, you got so many branches, same with the Army. And where do your products and services fall? And from there, be able to break down who the individuals are that you're going to need to start building those relationships with. And then from there, who are the prime contractors that you should start building relationships with? But usually when you're new, you definitely want to come in as a subcontractor, or I would recommend, so that way you can kind of get on there. A lot of the large primes, it's going to be hard to come in as a subcontractor, so you come in as a small prime. And then you can also see what's available out there for like small businesses, right? Are you veteran-owned, service disabled, women-owned, so on and so forth. But
do you... No, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, make sure like all the paperwork, so to speak, is put on par, know your direction and know your game plan, and then help start hitting the ground so that way you can at least start winning the one or two that'll start building your resume, so that way you can build up from there.
What do you recommend as just the first one or two steps for anybody trying to do business with the government?
Oh yeah, go on to SAM and fill out your profile. That would be the biggest one. And then find out if you do fall under a small business attribute. And so if you do, go ahead and get that certified, so that way you can start seeing those aspects there. And I would say those are the two biggest pieces, and then building relationships. It's all about relationships and partnerships. And so just start reaching out to individuals and don't sell them things. Just build that relationship. That's the biggest piece. Then from there, they'll learn more about you, your products and services. And once that other individual wins a prime, they'll be like, hey, I got, company X, Y, and Z that could really help me out with the subset of the prime. And then they'll bring you on as a sub, potentially.
That SAM.gov process, it's lengthy. I've gone through it. But for listeners who aren't familiar, that's where you're going to get what's called your unique identifier. That's where you're going to set up your NAICS codes, your PSC codes, which essentially these are codes that tell the government this is the product or service that you have to offer. At the end of that process, I also discovered, because I just kind of did this on my own, and I put no forethought into this other than just plunging in and doing it. I discovered this thing called NIST 800-171 or CMMC cybersecurity compliance. What a tangled web that thing is. What are your thoughts on any government contractor, subcontractor, and their subcontractors having to adhere to this new cybersecurity compliance measure?
Yeah, it's definitely a pain in a web to go through, but I do believe the cybersecurity is really important. Is it where it needs to be, even with the new compliance? Probably not. Yeah, I mean, we're still going to get hacked, but it's better than having just like an open line, open computer, and have easily being accessible, especially if you're doing stuff that requires a security level clearance. You need to make sure your stuff is locked on. But I think it's a good thing. It's a huge loop to jump through, but I do think being compliant with it and doing business with other individuals who are either compliant or at least willing to get compliant, so that way they could start that process if you're going to bring them on, is very important.
Yeah, I think the powers that be need to determine a way to do this that isn't such a capital burden on these small businesses that are trying to contract with the government. So on one hand, I
Mm-hmm.
see you absolutely have to have degrees of security. But on the other hand, when you look at the price tags for these IT providers to help do this thing, it can cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars based on how big that business is. So
Very true. So, how's the world of your business? How's everything going on that end?
kind of like you, we have to always approach it with an adapt or die mentality. So
Mm-hmm.
where I started an LLC consultancy, parabolic strategy, 6 months ago that was catering to startups, small businesses, and helping build the formation of the company, those kinds of basic fundamental services for any newcomers. I quickly realized that, well, startups and emerging small businesses don't have the capital to actually invest, number one. Number two, there's a reason they're entrepreneurs. They want to do it themselves. So I had to rapidly adapt to that reality. And it was a lesson learned for me. Do your market research before you put, quote, all of your eggs in that basket of services that you can offer. So I
Well,
pivoted. I'm now focused more on early career and mid management coaching. These are for aspiring junior managers, mid managers. I'm not trying to coach at the executive level. This is more
mm-hmm.
a very nuanced one-on-one engagement. They can call me anytime if they have issues with their employees and need a little soft skill guidance on how to mature their EQ and how to become more leadership minded, more patient, more metrics and measurements managers. So that's one of the services. The other, in my quest to acquire small businesses, which is what I really want to do, I want to build an empire of these small businesses that I own. I've learned a lot in that pre-acquisitions process in working
Mm-hmm.
with business brokers, with understanding the financials of the deal and how the deals get structured and how lenders, SBA lenders, look at the deal. And so I I like to offer my services out there, usually for free, to any aspiring small business entrepreneur who wants to get into that acquisitions process. So I invite people to just reach out, talk to me if you have questions. I'm an open book. I'll teach you what I know. I'm by no means an expert because I haven't closed a deal yet. And this
Mm-hmm.
isn't, it doesn't answer your question, but this isn't a way I can actually make money through my business. It's more of
Mm-hmm.
giving back to the community with that kind of
Nice.
spirit. But otherwise, um, the core consultancy, other than the small biz acquisition and the junior level managerial coaching, is fractional project and program management. And this is really the nuts and bolts of the service. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of small businesses or bootstrapping departments who are on limited budgets, they don't have the capital to onboard the overhead of a full-time project manager, but they have a ton of work and it's a lot for a very small team to manage. And so what I offer is very short-term engagements in project
Mm-hmm.
management. It could be anything. It could be a project involving just a bunch of nebulous administrative work that, it's the crap busy work that no one wants to do. You can just put
Mm-hmm.
that on our desk and we'll knock it out in a couple of weeks if that's the case. Or it could be more complex, singularly focused kinds of things like an IT implementation. So they have a new software they need to implement, but they don't have the time to actually manage it. They can call parabolic. And also for the government contracting community, for other types of contractors, not just government. You can actually onboard us for specific project engagement, and you can move that spend from the overheads line of your P&L up to your cost of goods. So you can actually pass through this cost through the contract, but you don't have to suffer the burden rate at the overhead level, right? So it's a way to kind of shift your budget around and make the budget make more sense as well. But that's what I'm doing. I'm still also on that path of acquiring a small business, and frankly, I might just start one up. I'm looking at some very specific service industry stuff like fire and water restoration, these kinds of trades, kind of the boring business. And I've also, through my quest to acquire businesses, I've got a network of experts who have actually reached out and can help me form a startup and rapidly get some momentum instead of buying $1 million one and financing it over the next 7 years and going basically broke. So stay tuned. I may just start one up here in the next month or so. We'll see.
Oh, that'd be exciting. Nice.
I
definitely.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say I definitely kind of feel your pain, jumping into the consultancy, especially with like the startups, right? And so it was one thing when I first jumped into doing a lot of this, I'd go after startups because they were so easy to close and kind of get the contracts with. But I was in the tech industry at first. It wasn't until about 4 years ago I moved back over into more of the DoD space, but in contractors there. But back then it was crazy because they'd be so eager. They're just like, yeah, they all thought that they were all the next unicorn company, because back then, everybody was getting crazy funding and going unicorn and, partying like rock stars. But they all figured that then once they figured out, what has to be done in order for them to get there, and the processes that need to be put in place, being able to delegate is a big piece there, right? Because the CEO wants to do everything, or the partner that he has wants to do it all. There was one company that I had to turn down because I ended up having the head of HR was a dude that was trying to educate me on marketing when he's never stepped foot in it whatsoever. But because he had all this experience of having no experience in it, he wanted to educate me. But yet, I've already, helped multiple companies kind of achieve a lot of their funding goals as well as, other goals too. And so you run into that, and then a lot of them also, and this might help with the acquisition processes, but a lot of these small companies at first, they feel like, they're going to be able to build their company to a size to, to where they can IPO. And that's not realistic, right? A lot of these companies don't have the products or the services that will grant them the available TAM in order for them to IPO. And so, they're hitting this wall, or the glass ceiling, so to speak. But they keep hitting this, thinking that they're going to be able to branch over it, but with their product or with their service, they never will. And so the best bet for them is to get acquired, and whether either get acquired by a company that's already IPO'd, and so that way it kind of adopts them into it, or get acquired by another company that actually needs their products and services to build more of that Rolodex for that company, so that way they could later IPO. But you run into that all the time as well. And just the motivational speaks that they'll, talk to their employees about, and all that is just, pumping them and building them up for something that's actually not going to be obtainable. But yeah, it's crazy. So when I started out, I started hitting all these startups, and then realized that like really the duration of those contracts is going to be like, 3 to 6 months in order to do the little bit of work they need. So where I was like, well, what if I went for medium-sized businesses? It tried to have that be my primary, and then do the small to help kind of supplement, and then from there start working on the large enterprises to get my foot in the door for a couple of those, because those will be like the good change in your pocket, and kind of take it on that approach. Really, what puts food on your table and everything is going to be more of those medium size, because they have a realistic mindset. They know they either have something that's going to IPO, or B, they need to get acquired or go through the next round of funding, so that way they could scale up to the next level to get acquired. But And so those guys that with that more realistic, they value more of what you're able to bring to the table. Rather than a lot of the small ones have this over expectance of what needs to be delivered in the amount of time that needs to be delivered in no realistic terms, because they probably haven't been in those shoes before, to where they're learning as they go as well. So, but yeah.
Well, you've hit on a really good point, and I think it's a good motivation check for any founders out there. The exit strategy needs to be at the forefront of the business plan before you even start. Now, I've been involved in the high tech, delicious and beautiful looking IPO plays. I've been a part of that startup environment, and it was fun. It was exciting. It was a grind. It gave me a lot of gray hairs, but I also am not interested in doing that again. It's helped me check my motivation on what I want to be involved in, which is, number one, I want to work for myself. Number two, I just want the boring small business or a bunch of them, because that's where a lot of the money actually is. If you're seeking the big payout and you're going to work your ass off in an IPO environment, you should also consider just doing that in like the skilled trades sector or something. Go buy a restaurant, something like that. Food and bev, actually, that's pretty risky, but you kind of catch the drift. And also I've looked at the franchise model, and what I've come to realize is I don't need a corporate overlord, because that's what I'm trying to escape. And as a small business owner, I don't need this other kind of quote leadership telling me what to do. That's why I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want that. But two, you're paying someone else a royalty. You're taking, anywhere from, it's usually around 7-8% right off the top line, and giving it to someone else for a failed regional and national marketing strategy that, kind of like your guy earlier, everyone's a marketing expert, but no one wants to do it. But anyway, so yeah, it's a good motivation check, the IPO play versus, actually focusing on serving your customer, having a quality product, a quality service that won't be jeopardized by other shareholders' money. That's one thing I found in the IPO environment. Also, we went public, and because of the expectations of those shareholders and commitments that were made, plus all of the auditing and reporting requirements that you have to do with the SEC, it's very easy to take focus from the actual thing that you're producing and make some pretty bad decisions in order to cater to expectations that are not the quality you're trying to provide your end user. You become beholden to a different kind of customer.
Yeah, and we see that with a lot of these public companies, right? I mean, there's a reason why when you buy a vacuum cleaner, it breaks in a couple of years and you got to get another one. Whereas before, in the 70s, you buy one, or 80s, and it lasts for a really long time, or even before that, right? And so the joys of going IPO and having to make sure your shareholders are satisfied and happy and making money.
Yeah. Well, Justin, man, it's been a great conversation. Let's give Nerdrums the proper plug. Where can people find more about what Nerdrums is? How can they contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. No, you could find out more about Nerdrums at Nerdrums, nerdrums.com. So November Echo Romeo Delta Romeo Uniform Mike.com or Sierra.com. So there's an S at the end of that. But right now that's under little construction, but there's also a place in there, like if you would like to, you can sign up for the newsletter, and that's up to par and kind of giving out the information that will soon be more long form on the website as we continue to grow. But it's just it's a new birthing. Just basically started this process up probably about a year ago, and kind of revamped the direction that I'm going with it. So any support would be helpful. You could also find me on LinkedIn, Justin Nerdrum. And yeah, I'm happy to talk and go through more stuff with y'all. Thank you.
That's great, man. Thanks for joining, and I look forward to watching your progress.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Richard. I'm happy to be here.
Of course, man. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. You have a good one.
You too.